Hi there, it's Llarold. Today I'm going to be talking about how to make gold in Wrath Classic. Wrath has been out for a couple of weeks now, and starting from a freshly boosted character with no gold or gear or anything, I leveled to 70 over the first week, and I bought Epic Flying a few days ago at this point. Obviously, gold is great for everything in WoW. The main focus for me is just buying the basic stuff like Epic Flying and dual specialization, but you can use the gold from these tips I give here just to get some capital to start leveling profitable professions like inscription or jewel crafting, or to buy BOEs, or cool mounts like a Mechano Hog, whatever you like, really. As a quick note, the cost of flying training is reduced by reputation in Wrath of the Lich King, so if you have rep with Orgrimmar or Stormwind, you can buy it at the riding trainers in the initial quest towns in Hellfire Peninsula for a reduced price. If you don't, there are flying riding trainers in the main quest towns in Borean Tundra who use Wrath reputation instead. So, if you've done pretty much any leveling quests at all in Wrath, you will have a discount with them instead. That's where I went to buy my Epic Flying, which feels pretty great. Whee! So first things first, I didn't use any professions. I didn't really do anything that involved grouping with other players at all. I did one dungeon while leveling, but that was it. I basically solo leveled and solo farmed, and in around 10 days I went from level 70, basic flying, no gold and no friends, to level 80, Epic Flying, no gold and still no friends. I did grind fairly hard on release day, but other than that, I was pretty casual with the whole process. Most of the gold farming I did at level 80 was in quick 30-minute bursts. I think that's pretty good. There are 4 main ways to make gold in WoW, so let's just run through them real quick. Number 1 is getting it from other players. Number 2 is quest rewards. Number 3 is looting it from mobs, and number 4 is vendoring items. And just to cover each of these in a bit more detail, getting gold from other players comes in several forms. It can be playing the auction house, using professions, selling BOEs or services, and this is usually the best way to make large amounts of gold, but it requires initial investment or coordination with a group, and it's definitely outside the scope of what I'm looking at here, so I don't really want to think about it at all. Also, gold from other players has a lot of volatility. Just as an example, when I started working on this video, Frostweave Cloth was selling for over 1 gold each on my server. By midway through, it had fallen to less than 50 silver. And by the time I finished writing this script, it was back up to 80 silver each. That's a pretty big swing back and forth. Getting gold from quests basically takes 2 forms. You can complete daily quests, which you can do once a day, or you can finish up quest lines that you didn't get to while leveling. There is a cap of 25 daily quests each day in Wrath, so that is your limit. If you do all of them and they give around 20 gold each, which is a low estimate, that's 500 gold a day, which is pretty good. Questing is simple and it's consistent. Consistency is good. If you do a daily quest, you're going to get the same amount of gold from it regardless of when you do it and on what server you do it on. Some daily quests rotate, but a lot are the same each day, and knowing exactly what to do and where to go will make you much faster at doing it. Looting mobs is incredibly simple. Humanoid mobs and some undead and demons will drop silver, and that's basically it. You can grind, AoE grind humanoids and undead to directly loot gold and cloth from them, and they do have a good chunk of other useful items that they can drop, which leads us to vendoring items. For the most part, this is just grays. You can vendor greens as well. In a lot of cases, green items are basically just totally worthless. Plate gear with agility and spirit on it, that's not useful to anyone. Mail gear with defense on it, again, useless, that kind of thing. You just vendor that. You can disenchant it, but again, that's playing around with professions. I think it's easier to just take the money from the vendor. Lots of quests will offer a group of green item rewards, and if none of them are useful to you, you should take the reward that has the highest vendor price, and consider that a free bit of bonus gold. When the quest rewards are all weapons, that can be worth like 15 gold sometimes, so vendoring items can actually add up to a lot of gold pretty quickly. I collected a lot of data over the last week, so let's dive into what I think are the 3 best options for making gold quickly without having to interact with other players or use professions. First and foremost, it is daily quests. For tracking daily quests, I counted the time I picked up the quest until the time I handed it in, and then compared the amount of gold I'd had when I started with the amount of gold once I finished it and vendored any grays I had gotten in the process of doing the quest. I didn't include any greens, I didn't include the value of any cloth, just straight gold from the hand-ins, looting mobs, and vendoring grays. Back in the original Wrath, I didn't really like doing daily quests. I wasn't a big enough nerd at the time to make a spreadsheet and track the gold I was making per hour, but if I had been, I would have realized that daily quests in Sholazar make over 400 gold per hour, and daily quests in Icecrown and Storm Peaks make around 450 to 500 gold per hour. That's really, really good. There are two main downsides to doing daily quests. First, the cap of 25 a day, so there's not really any way to exceed that on a single character. You could play multiple characters, but that's beyond the scope of what I'm trying to look at and cover in this video. Second, as the name would indicate, they're daily quests. You do them, and then you're done for the day. If you can knock out all 3 Sholazar Basin quests in 5 minutes, that's incredibly good. You just made like 70 gold in 5 minutes. You're making 840 gold an hour, but then you're done. That 5 minutes are over. That's it. This is great for being very efficient, but if you want to sit down and spend 5 hours on a Saturday trying to farm up gold for epic flying, you will need to supplement doing daily quests with something else. So here are a couple of options for that something else. Finishing up quest lines you missed while leveling is a really good option. I tracked several quest lines in Storm Peaks and Icecrown, and I made around 300 to 400 gold per hour on average doing them. This isn't as good for making gold as doing daily quests, and it is less consistent as well. A lot of quests are slower than dailies. Maybe they force you to fly around a lot more, or go deep into caves to kill one guy who's being farmed by other players and is on a fairly long respawn time, or they have long stretches of RP. But they still give around 20 gold each. Sometimes they're super fast too, like this quest right here where I fly up a hill and click some scrolls. It took me 30 seconds, and it still gave 20 gold. I did the whole chain that followed this quest in around 12 or 13 minutes, and it made about 150 gold, which is pretty nice. That's over 600 gold an hour. Not bad. Sometimes quests will give green quest reward gear as well. That's really useful if you're still trying to gear up, but if you don't need the gear, that's just extra stuff to vendor. Free gold. Even if you leveled purely by doing quests, you definitely still will have unfinished quest lines around the world to do once you hit level 80. So this is something everyone can do, and it's a pretty good option for making some easy gold. Also, doing quest lines is important for unlocking daily quest hubs. The Sons of Hodir quest area is a great example. You have a lot of quests that you have to do to unlock this area initially, and as you do more quest chains in their area, you unlock more daily quests for them. This means you can get a lot more done in a single trip out there, with less time spent flying around to different zones looking for more quests to do each day. There's one extra upside to finishing up quest lines that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's dungeon quests. There are a lot of quest chains throughout zones that will culminate in a dungeon quest, or sometimes a collection of dungeon quests. Finding groups to do leveling dungeons like Gundrak might be difficult once you're level 80, but maybe someone won't mind having you carry them through, or you can just gear up a little more and do the dungeons on Heroic and get quest credit there. Either way works, and the rewards for doing dungeon quests are incredibly good. I have 3 quests for Gundrak that all give over 50 gold each, plus some quest blues that I would most likely wind up vendoring, so I could make about 200 gold just by doing a 20-minute Gundrak run. That's pretty great. The downside of this strategy is very simple. You can't do quests more than once. You do them, they're done, that's it. You will get a lot of reputation out of finishing all of the quest lines that are available to you at level 80, so it's definitely worth doing if you're looking for an easy way to make some gold once you're out of daily quests, and to gear up with some gear from reputation vendors. Finally, the last method for making gold is just to grind packs of mobs. If you're on a class that can AoE grind efficiently, this is better, but even still, I consider this the worst possible way to make gold. Tragically, this was my favorite way to make gold back in the original Wrath. I guess my friends told me it was the best way, and I just took them at their word instead of making spreadsheets out of it and all, but it turns out it's not great. I farmed in a couple of places, and because I'm on a paladin, my favorite is Thunderfall, the frozen lake to the northeast of Dun Niflheim, the Sons of Hodir quest hub. There are tons of other good spots you can farm around in, and you should do the place that you like, and the best way to figure that out is to try a bunch of spots. But I like this area because there aren't that many other players around, the mobs are undead and I'm on a paladin, they're fairly close together, and they're not very annoying. I did a few tests in this area, and I got very unlucky with green drops. I didn't get any in the span of about 20 minutes or so, but I did loot quite a lot of silver and brazen cloth. So here are my findings. I made about 80 gold per hour in direct loot, and 90 gold per hour in graze. That's 170 gold per hour, so it's very, very bad compared to the 400 plus per hour that I was getting from dailies, and 300 gold or so per hour from finishing questlines. I did get a lot of Frostweave cloth from these mobs, which is why I chose to farm them. I farmed 69 in the span of 20 minutes, which is a little over 200 per hour. When I started farming, that would have been worth about 200 gold per hour, which would be great. That's around 370 gold per hour in total, so definitely not far behind questing. Unfortunately, by the time I managed to sell all of that Frostweave cloth, its value had dropped significantly. And that's the problem with this kind of farming strategy. You're subject to the value of trade goods on your server's auction house, so if they drop in value, you can wind up making substantially less than you would from more consistent sources like quests. This is also a concern for fresh start servers where there isn't this massive built-up economy of gold from the last several years of Classic, so nobody has tons and tons of gold to throw at trade goods like Frostweave Cloth or Eternal Fire to increase their value significantly. My favorite farming strategy back in Wrath was to farm Eternal Fire on the Fire Elementals southeast of Dun Niflheim, or in the southeast corner of Wintergrasp. I spent some time doing Wintergrasp dailies and farming Wintergrasp Elementals, and I found it to be shockingly bad. There is so much more competition for those mobs that I actually made less gold there per hour than I did anywhere else, so I definitely wouldn't recommend it to most players. I went over to the Fire Elementals southeast of Dun Niflheim, where Hodir's Forge is before you start doing the Sons of Hodir quests, and I farmed them for Crystallized Fire for a while just to see how good it is compared to questing. Because Elementals don't drop gold at all, the actual loot value from them is very, very bad. Without selling any Eternal Fire on the auction house, just counting vendoring the grays they drop, I can only make around 70 gold per hour from them, so just awful. That area is pretty contested because Eternal Fire is so high in value, so I wasn't really able to AoE pull either. I think this is probably good for an average player of just any old spec, since you don't have to be able to AoE to be as efficient as you possibly can be there, but if you are able to AoE and then you're stuck doing only one or two mobs at a time, it's a real loss of efficiency. I was farming Eternal Fire at a rate of around 10 per hour, which could be very good gold, or it could be terrible. It's totally dependent on your server's economy, and that is the problem with this kind of farming. A couple of days ago when I was working on this video and putting together the spreadsheet, Eternal Fire was only going for 22 gold each, so I would be making less than 300 gold per hour farming these elementals. That's not very good. By the time the weekend rolled around, Eternal Fire had gone up over 50% to over 35 gold each, which is incredible. That would be worth well over 400 gold per hour, but that's reliant on actually selling the Eternal Fire at a high value, which you may not be able to do. If Eternal Fire or Eternal Air or any trade good is at a very high price on your server, it may be worth farming after you've completed more reliable sources of gold, like daily quests and cleaning up unfinished quest chains, but there's a much larger element of volatility and risk there. The biggest upside to AoE farming is that it's something you can do once you're done with everything else, and it basically requires no setup or thinking at all. You find a spot to farm that you like, you buff up, and then you just kind of shut your brain off and you grind while you're watching TV or YouTube videos or something like that. I like that aspect of it a lot. It's not the most efficient method, but it is easy, and it's something you can do without any kind of limit at all. If I wanted to AoE grind for 15 hours, I can do that in one long day. If I want to do daily quests for 15 hours, that's going to take a couple of weeks of logging in, doing an hour of daily quests, and then logging out for the day. So let's just do a quick recap. Daily quests are by far the most efficient method of making gold. They are fast, reliable, and usually very easy. You can only do 25 a day, and you obviously can only do each quest once per day, so that is the downside. Finishing up unfinished quest lines is the second best option, and generally what you should do once you're done with dailies for the day, and you still want to play the game and make some gold. Questing can be a little inconsistent. Sometimes quests might take 10 minutes, sometimes quests might take 30 seconds. Sometimes you'll get gear you want to wear as an upgrade, or just vendor for a bit of bonus gold. The big issue is that once you've finished a quest, it's done. You will eventually run out of quest lines to complete. There will be no more worlds left to conquer. Finally, AoE grinding is the worst option. It's not terrible, it can even be good depending on your server's economy and what kind of enemies you're farming, but it will be way more reliant on selling trade goods to other people in order to get gold. This makes it less consistent, and usually it's not as good in terms of gold per hour. The biggest upsides are that it's endlessly repeatable, so it's pretty easy to just turn off your brain and grind for a while, and sometimes you can get a big reward in the form of a BOE drop that you can sell for a huge chunk of gold. Again, you're relying on other players for that to be worth anything, and it's very rare to actually loot a BOE epic, but even a BOE rare can be worth a couple hundred gold or so, and I've definitely looted far more BOE items while AoE grinding than I have while just doing quests. So that's it for my basic starter gold farming strategies. You definitely can make more with professions, but that requires gold investment and time investment. And this is a great way to get the gold required to get the ball rolling with that. If you have any farm spots or strats that I missed, please share them in the comments section. I would genuinely like to see them so that I can steal them. Well, anyways, I hope you found these tips helpful in your quest to earn some easy gold and get epic flying. Like and subscribe and all that YouTube stuff, and thanks for watching. Bye.